The crystal towers of Vaelthera stretched into the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest tower, representatives from 73 different alien species gathered in the Grand Council chamber. The meeting that would change everything was about to begin. Council Speaker Zethkar stood at the center of the massive room. His blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and his forearms moved gracefully as he spoke. Around him, creatures of every shape and size listened carefully. Some had scales, others had fur. Some breathed oxygen, others needed special masks. But they all shared one thing. They believed they were the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Fellow council members, Zethkar's voice echoed through the chamber. Today we discuss the small planet called Earth. It sits alone in a quiet part of space, far from our important trade routes. A hologram appeared in the air above them. It showed a blue and green world spinning slowly. White clouds swirled over the continents. To the aliens, it looked peaceful and weak. Our spy ships have watched this world for many years, Zethkar continued. The creatures there call themselves humans. They are primitive. They have no ships that can travel faster than light. They fight each other over small pieces of land. Their weapons shoot metal pieces through the air. Very basic. Laughter filled the chamber. The idea that such simple beings could pose any threat seemed ridiculous to these advanced aliens. Admiral Thexmol of the Vorthak Empire stepped forward. His massive form towered over the other aliens. The humans have approximately 8 billion individuals on their world, but they are divided into hundreds of small groups called nations. These nations fight each other constantly. They will be easy to control. More images appeared in the hologram. Cities full of humans going about their daily lives, soldiers training with simple guns, ships sailing across oceans instead of through space, aircraft that could barely leave their planet's atmosphere. Look at their technology, Thexmol said with contempt. They still burn fossil fuels for energy. They have only recently begun to explore their own solar system. A single council fleet could conquer them in days. The council members nodded in agreement. They had conquered thousands of worlds using the same approach. Show up with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and most species would give up, rather than face destruction. It had worked every time. But far away on Earth, some humans were starting to notice strange things. Admiral Kate Murphy stood in the command center of the North American Space Defense Network. Banks of computers hummed around her as technicians monitored signals from across the solar system. Kate had spent 20 years in the military, working her way up from a simple communications officer to head of deep space monitoring. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Jake Harrison from his station. "We're getting some weird readings from the outer system sensors." Kate walked over to look at Jake's screen. Lines of data scrolled past, but something about the patterns caught her attention. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures that don't match anything natural. They started showing up about a week ago. At first I thought it was just background radiation from a distant star, but the patterns are too regular." Kate frowned. In her experience, anything regular in space usually meant something artificial was causing it. "Keep monitoring it, and send the data to Dr. Park at the radio telescope array. Maybe she can make sense of it." 2,000 miles away, Dr. Lisa Park was having problems of her own. The massive radio dishes under her control were designed to listen for signals from deep space. But for the past few days, several communication satellites had been experiencing interference. "The jamming is subtle," she explained to her assistant, Dr. Nick Bailey. "If you weren't looking for it, you'd miss it completely. But someone or something is definitely blocking certain frequencies." Nick adjusted his glasses and looked at the data on Lisa's computer screen. Could be solar activity. "The sun's been pretty active lately." "That's what I thought at first, but look at this pattern." Lisa pointed to a series of spikes on her screen. "This isn't random. This is systematic. Someone is testing our communication systems, seeing how we respond to interference." Back on Vaelthera, the council debate was reaching its conclusion. Representative after representative had spoken in favor of invading Earth. The humans had valuable resources, water, rare minerals, and billions of potential workers. The planet was perfectly positioned to serve as a forward base for further expansion into that region of space. "The question before us is simple," Zethkar announced. "Do we add Earth to our growing empire now while the task is easy, or do we wait and risk them developing better technology?" The answer seemed obvious to everyone in the chamber. Waiting was pointless. The humans were centuries behind the council races in technology. They had no allies, No weapons that could threaten council ships, and no experience fighting space battles. "I call for a vote," Zethkar said. "All in favor of immediate invasion and occupation of the planet Earth?" Hands, claws, tentacles, and various other appendages rose throughout the chamber. The counting took several minutes because of the different ways each species indicated agreement. But when it was finished, the result was clear: 73 votes in favor. 0 votes against. The decision was unanimous. Earth would be conquered. Admiral Thexmol was given command of the invasion fleet. 300 of the Council's finest warships would make the journey to Earth. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city. Together, they could turn the entire planet into a wasteland if necessary. "How long should we expect the campaign to last?" asked Zethkar. Thexmol considered the question briefly. "Based on our intelligence, I estimate complete surrender within 72 hours of our arrival. The humans will see our fleet and immediately understand they cannot win. Standard procedure after that: we accept their surrender, establish orbital control, and begin resource extraction." The other council members approved of this timeline. Quick victories were always preferable to long campaigns. They had schedules to keep and other worlds to conquer. As the meeting ended and the various representatives prepared to return to their home worlds, none of them suspected they had just made the worst decision in galactic history. They saw humans as just another primitive species to be added to their empire. They didn't understand that humans were different. They didn't know about humanity's capacity for adaptation, their refusal to surrender in the face of impossible odds, or their talent for turning any available technology into a weapon. The Council had voted to invade Earth, and they were about to learn why that was a terrible mistake. Admiral Thexmol's fleet began preparing for the journey to the small blue world. In a few weeks, they would arrive in the Sol system and demand humanity's surrender. It would be quick, easy, and profitable. At least that's what they thought. 3 weeks later, Admiral Kate Murphy was staring at her screens in disbelief. The strange energy readings that Jake Harrison had detected were no longer subtle. Massive objects were appearing at the edge of the solar system, just beyond Pluto's orbit. "How many ships?" Kate asked, though she already knew the answer would be bad news. 300 confirmed contacts, Jake replied, his voice tight with worry. "They're big, Admiral. Much bigger than anything we've ever built. And they're moving toward Earth." Kate felt her stomach drop. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it wasn't the peaceful first contact that scientists had hoped for. "Get me a direct line to the President," Kate ordered, "and start sending alerts to every military base on the planet. We're about to have visitors, and I don't think they're here to make friends." The alien fleet moved through space with deadly precision. Admiral Thexmol stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on his viewing screen. The little blue world looked even more helpless up close. "Begin broadcasting the surrender demand," Thexmol commanded. His communications officer, a thin creature with 6 eyes, began transmitting on all frequencies that the humans used. The message was simple and direct. "Primitive beings of Earth, you are now subjects of the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick. Resist and your entire species will suffer before we destroy you." In the underground command bunker beneath Colorado, President Bobby Hayes listened to the alien message with growing anger. He was a simple man from Texas who had worked his way up through politics by always telling the truth and never backing down from a fight. "Those alien bastards just threatened to kill every person on Earth," Bobby said to his advisors. "What's our response time for getting our militaries coordinated?" General Frank Lewis, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, looked grim. "We can have basic coordination within 6 hours. Full integration will take days." "We don't have days," Bobby replied. "Get me a direct line to every world leader. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning in their country. We need to work together right now." The next few hours were chaos as world leaders who had been enemies just yesterday suddenly found themselves allies. Russia, China, America, Europe. All the old rivalries were put aside. Humanity had a common enemy now. Admiral Thexmol waited patiently for Earth's surrender. In his experience, primitive species needed a few hours to understand the hopelessness of their situation. He was confident the humans would see reason. He was wrong. President Bobby Hayes appeared on every television and computer screen on Earth. His message was broadcast in dozens of languages, but the meaning was the same in all of them. My fellow humans, Bobby said, looking directly into the camera. Alien ships have come to our world. They demand we surrender and become their slaves. My answer is simple. Earth doesn't kneel. Not now, not ever. We will fight for our freedom, our families, and our future. God help us all. Admiral Thexmol couldn't believe what he was hearing. They're refusing to surrender? That's impossible. They must not understand our superior technology. Perhaps a demonstration would convince them, suggested his tactical officer. Thexmol nodded. Target one of their military installations. Something isolated with minimal population. We'll show them what our weapons can do. The targeting computer selected Fort Campbell in Kentucky. The base was home to thousands of soldiers. But the aliens' intelligence was outdated. They thought it was mostly empty. The orbital strike lasted 3 seconds. A beam of pure energy lanced down from space, turning everything in a 5-mile radius into superheated plasma. 2,000 American soldiers died instantly, along with their families who lived on the base. Admiral Kate Murphy watched the attack from her command center. Satellite feeds showed where Fort Campbell used to be. Now there was only a glowing crater. Those monsters, she whispered. Then her training took over. All units, this is Admiral Murphy. We are now at war. Repeat, we are at war with an alien invasion force. All commands are authorized to use any and all weapons at their disposal. Around the world, military bases came alive. Nuclear submarines surfaced and armed their missiles. Strategic bombers took off from airfields. Tank divisions rolled out of their bases. Soldiers who had been drinking coffee in their barracks an hour ago were now preparing to fight aliens, but humanity's response wasn't limited to the military. Dr. Lisa Park abandoned her radio telescope research and began working on ways to jam alien communications. Dr. Nick Bailey started analyzing the energy signatures from their weapons, looking for weaknesses. In garages and workshops across the world, ordinary people began building weapons. Hunters modified their rifles. Mechanics turned farm equipment into armored vehicles. Engineers designed new explosives. Humanity was getting ready for war. Admiral Thexmol expected the destruction of Fort Campbell to break human resistance. Instead, he received humanity's answer in the form of 6 intercontinental ballistic missiles, launched simultaneously from different continents. The nuclear warheads exploded against his flagship's shields, causing no damage. But Thexmol was stunned. They're actually attacking us. With primitive nuclear weapons? It appears they are, sir, his tactical officer replied, sounding just as confused. This makes no sense, Thexmol muttered. Every species surrenders when they see our technology. It's the logical response to overwhelming force. What Thexmol didn't understand was that humans weren't always logical. They were emotional, stubborn, and absolutely refusing to give up their freedom without a fight. Captain Steve Rogers led a Marine battalion in the mountains of Colorado. When alien landing craft began descending toward major cities, Steve made a decision that would change everything. Men, those alien ships are heading for civilians, he told his soldiers over the radio. Our orders are to defend American soil. That's exactly what we're going to do. Steve's battalion had been testing experimental electromagnetic pulse weapons designed to stop enemy electronics. The weapons had never been used against alien technology, but Steve figured it was worth a try. The alien landing craft that approached Denver never made it to the city. Steve's EMP weapons overloaded their systems and sent them crashing into the mountains. When the aliens stumbled out of the wreckage, they found themselves facing very angry Marines with very big guns. "Welcome to Earth," Steve said just before his men opened fire. Similar scenes played out across the world. Alien landing parties found themselves under attack, not just by professional soldiers, but by police officers, hunters, farmers, and anyone else who could hold a weapon. In London, Air Marshal Jenny Cole coordinated fighter jets armed with experimental railgun weapons. The aliens' shields could stop energy weapons, but solid projectiles moving at incredible speeds were a different story. In Tokyo, Colonel Amy Foster led the first successful assault on a grounded alien ship. Her team used industrial mining explosives to breach the hull, then fought their way inside with shotguns and grenades. Admiral Thexmol realized that something had gone terribly wrong with his invasion. The humans weren't surrendering. They weren't even retreating. They were attacking his forces with a combination of primitive weapons and creative tactics that his military training had never prepared him for. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving reports from landing parties across the planet. Heavy resistance everywhere. The humans are fighting with everything they have. How is this possible? Thexmal demanded. They can't win against our technology. But as he watched his forces struggle against an entire planet that refused to surrender, Thexmal began to suspect that winning wasn't the point for humans. They were fighting because giving up was simply not in their nature. Earth had given the aliens their answer, and it wasn't the one they expected. 2 months into the invasion, Admiral Thexmal stood before a holographic projection of the Galactic Council. His blue skin had lost its healthy glow, and his forearms moved nervously as he tried to explain why Earth still hadn't surrendered. Honored Council members, Thexmal began, the humans are proving more resilient than our intelligence predicted. They continue to resist despite suffering significant casualties. Council Speaker Zethkar's image flickered with annoyance. Admiral, you assured us this planet would surrender within days. It has been 2 months. What is the delay? Thexmal struggled to find words that wouldn't make him sound incompetent. The humans fight differently than other species we have conquered. They do not have a central command structure that we can target. When we destroy one military base, others continue fighting independently. Then destroy more bases, suggested Admiral Kethvar, whose own fleet was being prepared for dispatch to Earth. Show them that resistance is futile. We have destroyed 47 military installations, Thexmal replied. Each time we expect surrender. Instead, the attacks against our forces intensify. The council members exchanged glances. This was not how conquests were supposed to proceed. On Earth, humanity was indeed intensifying their efforts. Dr. Marcus Webb had lost his wife and 2 children when the aliens bombed New York City. The brilliant quantum physicist had been working on theoretical particle beam weapons for years, but now he had a very personal reason to make them work. Nick, look at this, Marcus said to Dr. Nick Bailey as they worked in a hidden laboratory beneath MIT. The aliens' energy shields operate on a rotating frequency. If we can match that frequency and reverse the polarity, we could punch right through them, Nick finished, understanding immediately. Marcus, this is genius. How long do you need to build a prototype? Give me 72 hours. While scientists worked on new weapons, the military was learning hard lessons about fighting aliens. Captain Steve Rogers had been promoted to colonel after his success in Colorado. Now he was training other units in anti-alien tactics. The key is unpredictability, Steve explained to a group of officers from around the world. These aliens are used to fighting species that follow logical military doctrine. We need to do things that make no tactical sense, like what? Asked Captain Tim Andrews, a Navy SEAL who had recently transferred to the new Alien Combat Division. Like using suicide drones made from civilian aircraft. Like hiding our soldiers in sewers and subway tunnels. Like attacking their ships with crop dusters loaded with explosives. The aliens can't defend against crazy if they don't understand crazy. The strategy was working. Alien casualties were mounting as human fighters used increasingly desperate and creative tactics. But humanity was paying a terrible price too. Major cities lay in ruins. Millions of people had died, and the aliens still controlled space around Earth. That was about to change. Admiral Kate Murphy had been secretly coordinating with engineers and scientists around the world. Using pieces of technology salvaged from crashed alien ships, they had built something unprecedented. Humanity's first faster-than-light capable vessel. The ship wasn't pretty. It looked like someone had welded a space shuttle to a nuclear submarine and added alien technology wherever it would fit, but it could travel between stars. And more importantly, it could fight. We're calling it the Defiance, Kate explained to President Bobby Hayes during a secure video conference. It won't win the war by itself, but it proves we can build starships. And if we can build one, we can build more. Bobby finished with the first smile he'd worn in months. How soon can we launch it? Tomorrow, if you give the order. The launch of the Defiance was kept secret from most of humanity, but news of its existence somehow reached the aliens. Admiral Thexmal received the report with disbelief. That's impossible, he told his intelligence officer. The humans don't have faster-than-light technology. Apparently they do now, sir. Our deep space sensors detected a human vessel leaving their solar system 12 hours ago. Thexmal felt a chill run through his body. If the humans could build starships, they could take the war beyond Earth. And if they could do that? Send an emergency message to the Council, Thexmal ordered. Request immediate reinforcements. All available ships. The message reached Valthera just as Admiral Kethvar was preparing to depart with 500 additional warships. Council Speaker Zethkar read Thexmal's report with growing alarm. The humans have achieved faster-than-light travel in just 2 months? Zethkar asked his science advisor.
How is that possible?
They must have reverse-engineered our technology, Speaker. But even so, the speed of their technological adaptation is unprecedented. Most species take decades to understand our science. Zethkar made a decision that he would later regret. We will end this quickly. Admiral Kethvar, you are authorized to use orbital bombardment. Destroy their major population centers. That will break their will to fight. Admiral Kethvar's fleet arrived at Earth just as Dr. Marcus Webb was putting the finishing touches on his particle beam weapon. The alien admiral immediately began implementing the Council's new strategy. Target the largest population centers. Kethvar ordered. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing. Simultaneous strikes. This ends today. The orbital bombardment lasted 10 minutes. When it was over, 5 of Earth's greatest cities were nothing but radioactive craters. 20 million people had died in those 10 minutes. But instead of breaking humanity's will to fight, the bombardment had the opposite effect. It made humans angry. Not just military angry, but the deep, burning anger that comes from watching everything you love being destroyed by bullies. Dr. Marcus Webb's particle beam weapon was ready for testing when the news of the bombardment reached him. He had planned to run careful experiments, to test the weapon safely on small targets. Instead, he loaded it onto a makeshift platform and aimed it at the nearest alien ship. The beam punched through the alien vessel's shields like they weren't there. The ship exploded in a ball of superheated plasma that lit up the night sky over Boston. Did that just work? Nick Bailey asked in amazement. It worked, Marcus replied grimly. Now we need to build 100 more. Similar scenes were playing out around the world. Colonel Amy Foster had figured out how to adapt alien shield generators to human vehicles. Her tanks now had energy shields that could deflect alien weapons. Captain Tim Andrews led the first human assault on an alien orbital platform using captured alien fighter craft. His pilots had learned to fly alien ships by trial and error, losing many good people in the process. But now they could fight the aliens in their own sky. The tide was turning, but the aliens didn't realize it yet. Admiral Kethvar received reports of increased human resistance and assumed it was desperation. The bombardment has made them desperate, he told his officers. They're throwing everything they have at us. We just need to hold out until they exhaust their resources. But Admiral Thexmal, who had been fighting humans for months, recognized what was really happening. The humans weren't getting desperate. They were getting better. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we've lost contact with 3 more ships in the last hour. The humans appear to have developed energy weapons that can penetrate our shields. How many ships have we lost total? Thexmal asked, though he dreaded the answer. 87 ships destroyed, 43 damaged beyond repair. We've also lost 6 orbital platforms and 12 ground bases. Thexmal stared at the numbers in horror. In 2 months, the humans had destroyed nearly half of his invasion force, and their attacks were getting stronger every day. Send another message to the Council, Thexmal ordered. Tell them we need every available ship. All of them. But even as he sent the message, Thexmal suspected it might be too late. The humans had learned how to fight aliens, and worse than that, they had learned how to beat them. Earth was no longer just defending itself. It was preparing to take the war to the stars. 6 months after the invasion began, the war had changed completely. Admiral Kate Murphy now commanded not just Earth's defenses, but humanity's first interstellar fleet. Ships that had been built in secret shipyards hidden on the dark side of the moon were now carrying the fight directly to alien worlds. The bridge of the Defiance hummed with activity as commander. Rick Carter studied the tactical display. Their target was a Vorthax supply depot on the edge of Council space. Intelligence gathered from captured aliens had revealed its location. All ships report ready, Admiral, Rick said into his communicator. Kate's voice came back from the flagship Retribution. Begin the attack. Show these aliens what humans do to bullies. The human fleet struck without warning. 12 ships, each one a hybrid of human engineering and captured alien technology, hit the supply depot with everything they had. The aliens had built their depot far from any major military bases, never imagining that the primitive humans could reach them. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, the depot was the expanding cloud of debris. and the human fleet had captured 3 alien cargo ships full of advanced technology. News of the attack sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Council Speaker Zethkar stood before an emergency assembly, his blue skin pale with worry. "The humans have attacked Vorthak Station 7, he announced. "This is the 15th Council facility destroyed by human forces in the past month." The representatives from the various council species were no longer laughing about the primitive humans. Admiral Kethvar's reinforcement fleet had arrived at Earth only to find that the humans now had weapons that could destroy council ships with single shots. "How is this possible?" demanded Representative Gloxkar of the hegemony. "These creatures were supposed to be conquered in days." "Our intelligence was flawed," Zethkar admitted. "We assumed the humans would behave like other species we have conquered. We were wrong." On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Marcus Webb was working on humanity's most ambitious project yet. The orbital bombardment that had killed his family had given him an idea. A terrible, brilliant idea. "We call it the Planet Cracker," Marcus explained to President Bobby Hayes during a secure video conference. "It uses the same particle beam technology as our ship weapons, but scaled up by a factor of 1,000. Bobby looked at the technical specifications with growing amazement and horror. "Marcus, this thing could destroy an entire world." "That's the point, sir. The aliens think they can threaten Earth with orbital bombardment. We need to show them that two can play that game." The construction of the Planet Cracker was the largest engineering project in human history. Built in the asteroid belt using materials mined from hundreds of asteroids, it required the coordination of every space-capable nation on Earth. But humans weren't just building super weapons. They were learning to fight smarter, too. Captain Tim Andrews now commanded a squadron of captured alien fighters. His pilots had spent months learning to think like aliens, to understand their tactics and exploit their weaknesses. "The problem with these council species," Tim explained to his squadron, "is that they've been winning for so long, they've forgotten how to adapt. They use the same tactics against every enemy." "What's our advantage?" asked Lieutenant Sarah Murphy, Admiral Murphy's daughter, who had joined the Space Force after the bombing of New York. "We don't have any preconceptions about how space battles are supposed to work. We make up new tactics every day. They can't defend against something they've never seen before." Tim's squadron proved this point during the battle for Kepler Station, a major alien military base. Instead of attacking the heavily defended main entrance, the human fighters used their ship's gravity generators to slingshot around the station's moon, approaching from an angle that the alien defenders had considered impossible. The battle was a complete victory for humanity. Kepler Station was captured intact along with its commander, Admiral Thexmal himself. The interrogation of Admiral Thexmal revealed information that changed everything. Under questioning by Colonel Steve Rogers, the alien admiral broke down and revealed the true scope of the Council's empire. 73 worlds, Thexmal whispered, his forearms bound behind his back. The Council controls 73 different species across thousands of star systems. "And they're all coming for Earth?" Steve asked. Thexmal's laugh was bitter. "No, human. Earth is coming for them. Your species. You don't just defend yourselves. You hunt your enemies. You follow them home. You make sure they can never threaten you again." Steve nodded grimly. Thexmal was right. Humanity wasn't content to just win the war. They wanted to make sure it never happened again. Dr. Laura Kim had been working on captured Council technology for months, trying to understand how their faster-than-light communication systems worked. When she finally cracked the code, she made a discovery that excited her even more than the Planet Cracker. "Bobby, I can tap into their communication network," she explained to the president. "Every message, every order, every tactical plan. We can read their mail." "Do it," Bobby ordered immediately. Within hours, human intelligence was intercepting Council communications across the galaxy. What they learned was that the Council was in full panic mode. Reports were flooding in from across their empire. Human ships had been spotted in 17 different star systems. But the most important intercept came from Valthara itself. Council Speaker Zethkar was sending a desperate message to all Council worlds. Emergency protocols are now in effect. All military vessels return to defend core worlds immediately. The human threat is no longer contained to Earth. Admiral Kate Murphy read the intercepted message with satisfaction. They're scared. They're pulling back their fleets to protect their home worlds. Good. replied President Bobby Hayes. Let's give them something to really be scared of. The human response was swift and devastating. Captain Pete Walsh led a strike force of 30 ships to the Vorthak homeworld. The aliens had expected a small raiding party, not a full invasion fleet. The Battle of Vorthak Prime lasted 3 days. When it was over, the planet that had served as the military headquarters of the Council's war machine was under human occupation. Billions of alien civilians looked up at human ships in their sky and wondered how their mighty empire had been brought so low by creatures they had dismissed as primitive. But humanity's greatest victory was yet to come. Dr. Marcus Webb's planet cracker was finally complete, and its target had been chosen. Valthara, the crystal world that served as the Council's capital. Are you sure about this, Marcus? Admiral Kate Murphy asked as they reviewed the final targeting data. Once we use this weapon, there's no going back. We'll have shown the galaxy that humans can destroy entire worlds. Marcus thought of his wife and children, vaporized in the bombing of New York. Kate, they need to understand what it costs to threaten humanity. Every species in the galaxy needs to see what happens when you vote to invade Earth. The planet cracker fired once, sending a beam of concentrated energy across hundreds of light years to strike Valthara. The crystalline towers that had stood for millennia cracked and fell. Entire continents were turned to glass. The planet didn't die, but it was broken. And every alien in the galaxy got the message. Earth was no longer prey. Council Speaker Zethkar stood in the ruins of his capital city, looking up at human ships in orbit. His empire was crumbling. Council worlds were surrendering to human forces rather than face destruction. The species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years had been brought to their knees in less than a year. Prepare a message to the human commanders. Zethkar ordered his surviving staff. Tell them the Council is ready to discuss surrender terms. The age of human dominance in the galaxy was about to begin. 18 months after the first alien ships had appeared at the edge of the solar system, Admiral Kate Murphy stood on the bridge of the battleship Nemesis in orbit around the broken crystal world of Valthara. The planet's surface was scarred with massive cracks where Dr. Marcus Webb's planet cracker had struck, a permanent reminder of what happened when someone threatened humanity. Through the view screen, Kate could see the remains of the once mighty Galactic Council fleet. Hundreds of alien warships floated dead in space, their hulls cracked open by human weapons. The few ships that remained intact flew white flags of surrender. "Admiral," reported Commander Rick Carter from the communications station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Council chambers on the planet's surface." "Put it through," Kate ordered. Council Speaker Zethkar's image appeared on the main screen. The proud alien leader who had once commanded an empire spanning thousands of worlds now looked broken and defeated. His blue skin was pale and his forearms trembled as he spoke. "Admiral Murphy of the Human Terran Forces," Zethkar began, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Galactic Council formally surrenders to humanity. We wish to discuss terms." Kate studied the alien's face for a moment before responding. "The terms are simple, Zethkar. Unconditional surrender of all Council forces, immediate withdrawal from all occupied worlds, and reparations for the damage done to Earth." "We accept," Zethkar replied without hesitation. "Please, no more orbital bombardments. Our people are already suffering." Kate felt a moment of satisfaction. The beings who had casually ordered the destruction of Earth cities now begged for mercy for their own worlds. On Earth, President Bobby Hayes watched the surrender broadcast from his office in the rebuilt White House. The original building had been destroyed in the alien bombardment of Washington, D.C., but Americans had rebuilt it exactly as it was before, a symbol that humanity could not be broken. "Well, I'll be damned," Bobby said to his chief of staff. "We actually won." The victory had come at a terrible cost. Nearly 50 million humans had died during the war. Major cities on every continent lay in ruins. But humanity had survived, and more than that, they had won decisively. Dr. Nick Bailey, now head of the newly formed Terran Research Division, was already analyzing the implications of their victory. In his laboratory beneath the rebuilt MIT campus, he studied captured alien technology and tried to understand what humans had accomplished. The aliens made 3 critical mistakes, Nick explained to a gathering of world leaders via hologram. First, they assumed we would surrender when faced with superior technology. They didn't understand that humans fight harder when we're outgunned. President Bobby nodded. What was their second mistake? They thought we couldn't adapt their technology quickly enough to matter. They were wrong. Humans are the best in the galaxy at reverse engineering and improving on existing designs. And the third mistake? Asked the Prime Minister of England. Nick's expression grew serious. They assumed we would fight like they do, with limited objectives and rational tactics. They didn't understand that when you threaten our families, we don't just defend ourselves. We hunt you down and make sure you can never threaten anyone again. The truth of that statement was evident across the galaxy. Human fleets now occupied 27 former Council worlds. The remaining 46 species that had made up the Galactic Council were either under human protection or begging for peace treaties. Commander Pete Walsh led the occupation force on Hegemony Prime, homeworld of one of the Council's founding species. The aliens there had lived for centuries believing they were among the most advanced beings in the universe. Now they watched human engineers rebuilding their war-damaged cities using technology that surpassed anything the Council had ever developed. How did they advance so quickly? Asked the former Hegemony governor, now serving as Pete's liaison with the local population. Pete looked up from his reports. You want to know the secret? Humans don't just copy technology, we improve it. Every piece of equipment we captured from you, we made better. Your energy shields, our engineers made them stronger. Your weapons, our scientists made them more powerful. Your ships, our designers made them faster. The governor's tentacles writhed with confusion. But how? We spent thousands of years perfecting those technologies. That's your problem right there, Pete replied. You thought you had perfected them. We knew they could be better. Back on Earth, the most important discussions were taking place about what to do with humanity's new position as the dominant power in the galaxy. Dr. Laura Kim had been appointed as Earth's first Secretary of Galactic Affairs, and she was trying to figure out how to manage an empire that humanity had never wanted. We could rule them directly, suggested General Frank Lewis during a cabinet meeting. Install human governors on every world, make them follow our laws. President Bobby shook his head. That's what the Council did, and look how that turned out. The first time they saw weakness, someone would try to rebel. So what do you suggest? Asked Admiral Kate Murphy, who had been promoted to Supreme Commander of all human forces. Bobby looked out the window at the construction crews rebuilding Washington, D.C. We don't rule them. We protect them. We make it clear that any species that starts a war of aggression will answer to humanity, but otherwise we let them govern themselves. It was a radical idea, a galactic empire based on protection rather than domination. But it was the most human solution to the problem. The new order was formalized in the Treaty of Velthara, signed in the ruins of the former Council chambers. Representatives from all 73 former Council species agreed to the formation of the Terran Protectorate. Under the treaty's terms, each species would maintain its own government and laws. But any act of aggression against another species would result in immediate intervention by human forces. War between species was now illegal, enforced by the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. Council Speaker Zethkar, reduced to representing only his own species rather than commanding an empire, read the treaty terms with amazement. You're not going to enslave us? You're not going to strip mine our worlds? Admiral Kate Murphy, now serving as the first Protector General of the Terran Protectorate, shook her head. We never wanted an empire, Zethkar. We just wanted to be left alone. Since that's apparently impossible, we'll make sure nobody else has to go through what Earth went through. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of aliens watched as the species they had dismissed as primitive took control of galactic civilization, not through conquest and oppression, but through strength and protection. Dr. Marcus Webb, the man who had built the weapon that cracked Velthara, was among the human delegation. But instead of celebrating, he seemed thoughtful. Something bothering you, Marcus? Asked Dr. Nick Bailey. Marcus nodded toward the alien representatives. Look at them, Nick. They're not just defeated, they're confused. They can't understand why we're not acting like conquerors. Maybe that's the point, Nick replied. Maybe that's what makes humans different. We don't just know how to win wars. We know how to win peace. 5 years later, the Terran Protectorate had become the most stable government the galaxy had ever known. Trade flourished between species that had been enemies for millennia. Scientific cooperation led to advances that benefited everyone. And for the first time in galactic history, no species lived in fear of being conquered by their neighbors. Admiral Kate Murphy, now retired and serving as Earth's ambassador to the Protectorate Council, often thought about the day the aliens had first appeared in Earth's sky. They had come expecting an easy conquest, confident that their technological superiority would guarantee victory. They had been wrong about many things, but their biggest mistake was not understanding what humans were capable of when pushed to the brink. The Council had voted to invade Earth, and they had paid the price with their empire. But in losing their empire, they had gained something better. A galaxy where strength was used to protect rather than conquer, where differences were celebrated rather than eliminated, and where no species would ever again vote to destroy another world's freedom. The aliens had learned too late why humanity was different. Humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to make sure the fight never had to happen again. And in the end, that had made all the difference.